hurry down. One more to stab to death. You know what? I don't even feel like going out. I shut down the computer. All of those places look like a bad time. I got up and grabbed the ice cream from my freezer. Then I sat down with a spoon, a blanket, and turned on the TV. Time for some movies. You chilled at home, and it was awesome. Honestly, that would have been me. I don't go places. And honestly, the way that this is, it's probably for the best. If this is the kind of thing that I am avoiding by staying at home and watching movies and eating snacks, I'm for it. Okay, I guess for realsies this time, let's go be fancy bitches at Cafe Royale. Maybe a cafe would be nice tonight. I left my apartment and headed to the cafe. It was actually pretty quiet. The sound of a piano slowly began to cut through the silence like tissue, and I was soon completely mesmerized by the bewitching music. I don't even really remember entering the cafe. I was so enthralled. Moonlight Sonata. A suave voice broke me from my stupor. I had suddenly found myself standing next to the source of the alluring music. Enjoying the music? I stared at him for a moment before responding. It's the blonde-haired, blue-eyed characters I've just been so conditioned to hate on sight. Oh, yes, it's very lovely. He looked up from the keys, his hands continuing their melodious work. Please, have a seat. He nodded to a nearby chair before returning his attention to the ivories. I took my seat and quietly watched him play. His long fingers danced elegantly across the keys, and I couldn't help but be hypnotized all over again. I stared at the side of his face and watched him for a moment. I wanted to know more about him. Is there something on my face? His joking comment brought me back to reality. No, but apparently there's about to be. It's me and my dumb bitch syndrome. Again, I looked up at him and shook my head. No. Just amazed by your playing. He chuckled and gave me a side glance. Now I know you didn't come all the way here just to listen to me play. He took his hands off the keys and turned to face me, finally giving me his full attention. So then, sweetheart, what can I do for you? Is this man 50 years old? Disgusting. Oh, right. I guess a coffee sounds good right now. Maybe I did just come here for the music. Is that a crime? Maybe I just wanted to find some interesting people to talk to. Let's do it. Let's just get this out of the way. He laughed at me and crossed his arms. As far as I know, it's not, but I think you might have to reevaluate your priorities, sugar. Again, is he 50 years old? He stood up. What about the piano? I asked, pointing at the beautiful instrument. Don't worry. It's not going anywhere. He held out his hand and helped me out of my seat. We walked over to the barista's counter together and ordered some coffee. I watched him as he spoke to the woman working behind the counter. I kept my eyes on him. I was finding it exceedingly difficult to look anywhere else. So what's your name, love? It's just the pet names. The pet name thing it's not doing it for me. I snapped back to reality before managing to choke out my name. It's Cece. He brought me over to the table. He pushed a fancy-looking coffee with ice cream towards me. A pleasure to meet you. My name is Kane. Kane picked up a spoon and offered it to me. Here, give this a try. This place serves the best affogato that you will ever taste. I don't really like ice cream. I do, though. I'm just trying to be ornery. Or I make him try it first, make sure it's not poisoned. Nah, that's too bad. I suppose I should have asked you what you liked first. Yeah, maybe you should have, instead of just assuming things, bitch. Kane chuckled before digging into the dessert himself and pushing his black coffee over to me. Disgusting, still disgusting. Maybe you should try this instead. The coffee here is still very good. He dipped his spoon into the bowl and continued to eat the affogato. I looked down at the steaming dark coffee and took a sip. Despite the inky color, the flavor was rich and flavorful. I don't do coffee just in general, but I especially cannot do coffee without cream and sugar. Like, my coffee needs to be practically white with the amount of creamer that I put into it to make it palatable. He was right. It was very good. Kane looked at the clock hanging above the barista's counter. Oh my, is it that time already? He looked at me and leaned his head to the side. I suppose time really does fly when you're having fun. He stood up, took my hand in his, and gave it a kiss. If a stranger did this to me in the middle of a bar or club or whatever, I would physically just turn into ashes from how hard I would cringe. Just like, I would just internally combust and just be a pile of ashes in the middle of the floor. Like, disgusting. Like, one, don't touch me, but for sure, do not kiss me. I don't know you. Have a lovely rest of the night, my dear. Unfortunately, I have to go, but I do hope that we meet again. I don't. He started making his way towards the exit. Have a good night. You know, it's kind of funny. You didn't strike me as the type to have a bedtime. I teased. He responded with a jovial laugh. Well, I'm not as young as I used to be, obviously. You're born in fucking 1915. I need to get my beauty sleep. He pushed his fingers through his hair. You look fairly young. How old are you exactly, Kane? Kane chuckled a little and raised his eyebrows in what seemed like amusement. Have a good night, my dear. What is he, a fucking vampire? Maybe we'll meet again someday. Because we already had a werewolf. It would just make sense to complete, the duo. He waved at me before finally walking out the door. Yeah, maybe. I noticed a large black feather sitting on the table. I picked it up and examined it. How did this get here? Something about it was strange. It didn't look like a normal bird feather. It was much larger and thicker than any feather that I've ever seen. What the hell is... God damn it, he ended up poisoning my fucking drink anyways. My heart inexplicably started pounding. I dropped the feather back on the table, but the thumping didn't stop. I got up from my seat and rushed out of the cafe. Maybe I can just walk it off. The pulsing in my chest only grew more severe as I tried to walk home. My heart was beating so loud in my ears that I couldn't even think straight. It felt like my heart was going to explode. Oh, I recognize this fucking corner. Despite this mysterious affliction, I ran home. I ran until my muscles burned and the acid in my stomach crawled up my throat. I put my hand over my mouth as the urge to vomit began to creep in. Almost there. I pulled the keys out of my pocket and hastily searched through them as I approached my door. I leaned myself against my door and wiped the sweat from my forehead. I was exhausted from the whole thing. What was happening to me? Why was I feeling this way? Maybe I should go throw up, just get everything out of my stomach. I could feel tears streaming down my face. I was scared. I shoved my face into one of the pillows and cried into it. I needed help, but I didn't know what to do. I was so tired. My eyelids fluttered before closing, finally losing the last shred of energy that I had. I felt a gentle warmth touch my face. There he is. He's going... Oh, I thought it was him. I was like, he's going to... he's probably going to be torturing me inside my own house. I don't know what it is about them getting in my goddamn house, but I'm not about it. I groaned as I flipped over in my sheets, feeling how soft they were under my hands. They smelled nice, too. Wait, my window didn't catch the sun in the morning. Okay, so he spirited us away. only during sunset. I sat up quickly and looked around. This wasn't my room. Fucking fancy. How posh. Where was I? I noticed a note on the nightstand next to the bed. I nervously reached for it. Meet me in the living room. Living room? I looked at the other side of the card. Nothing else was written. I got out of bed and looked at my body. When did I take my clothes off? Cool. I was only in my underwear. Cool. No. I left the strange room, clutching the note close to me. I wandered into the living room. My eyes scanned the large, expensive-looking apartment until they found a man standing in front of a window that led out to a balcony. Kane? My voice escaped my lips. He turned around to face me, and that horrible feeling that I got from the feather started to come back. Has absolutely nothing to do with anything, but I am not feeling these little yellow cups. I don't feel like that's the correct, I understand that like a pop of color break up the monochrome of this maroon, but I don't think that was the right color. I'm not about it. Oh, you're awake. How was your sleep? I didn't answer. I wasn't in the mood for his jokes. That well, huh? His sweet, gentle voice from last night turned cruel and sadistic. What's happening? How did I get here? My voice was trembling. Even through my anger, I couldn't mask the fear and uneasiness I was feeling. Kane laughed diabolically at me. Then I noticed something odd happening to Kane. The glitching? I wasn't sure if I was seeing was real or just a hallucination. His body was starting to change. His form shifted into someone else entirely. He ran a hand through his red hair and stared at me. What's up, homie? Why, I brought you here, of course. This makes a lot more sense with the house. I have to get out of here. I took a step back and started inching out of the room before breaking into a run. I didn't get very far as my body collided with some sort of invisible barrier. Hard. Kane sighed as he watched me crumple to the floor. I rolled around to face him. His bright yellow eyes pierced through me as some phantom hand grabbed my neck and dragged me across the floor. Okay, I understand the yellow in his eyes, the yellow in his belt. I still don't like it. I am still going to hold my position that is irrelevant and has absolutely no bearing on the story. I will die on that hill. His bright yellow eyes pierced through me as some phantom hand grabbed my neck and dragged me across the floor. I struggled to breathe as the ghostly claw tightened its grip on my throat. I frantically grabbed at my neck, trying to get whatever was choking me to stop. All I could do was writhe and squirm helplessly on the floor. Don't waste your energy, my pet. A lowly creature like you has no hope of escaping. Okay. Just accept your fate as my new toy and make this easy on yourself. Kane's hand replaced the unseen one as he picked me up from the ground by my neck. He held me up and stared at me. Jet black wings extended from his back. What was he? All right, I'll tell you. I'm going to flay your skin, crack your bones, play with your organs, and maybe even drink your blood. Sweet. I'll be doing whatever I damn well please. He released my throat and I dropped to the floor. You will beg for death, and you will get it. Once I've had my fill of you. But until that time comes, you will be living on your knees. I'm so good at that. I could feel the same invisible force pinning my entire body to the floor. It felt like a giant rock was slowly crushing me. He didn't even need to lay a finger on me. He was a monster. Kane watched me as I fought in vain to pick myself up, and then stomped and grinded the heel of his shoe into the side of my head. That being said, I'm interested in seeing how long you'll last. Kane removed his foot and turned away. His wings receded into his back as the unseen pressure faded. Why me? Why you indeed? Kane leaned against the window. You humans are a dime a dozen. None of you are as unique as you all like to believe, but you? He crossed his arms and looked up at the ceiling. It seemed like he wasn't entirely sure himself. Let's just say that you happen to fit my interesting person criteria. Okay, sir. This feels very like Twilight, when Bella shows up and she's like fucking boring as shit and she has like no personality, and yet everyone in the immediate vicinity like falls in love with her for no reason. And that's about what I'm feeling. I literally did not do anything interesting or clever or fun in this cafe. Like, I told him to fuck off. I didn't want his ice cream, get wrecked, and he's just like, yep, that's it, that's the one. She's super interesting and I love that. He shifted his gaze over to me. Honestly, you should feel honored that I chose you to be my little puppet. Ooh, for sure. It's a privilege that not too many get to enjoy. He looks like he's wearing like ultra low riders. Like they don't even, like it looks like his hips would hit about here and his are like all the way down here. I tried to stand up slowly. My legs were wobbling as I did, but I managed. Keep me interested in you, love. He went to sit down. Let's give him a little bit of a talking to. Show him how I'm interesting. Kane looked over his shoulder at me. What is it, meat? That's it. That's my favorite one so far. Meat. His tone suddenly rude and uncouth. Is this the part where I get tied up? Restrain me so I can't try to escape? Oh, there will be some tying up later if I'm in the mood for it. But it's not going to be what you think it's for. His eyes shifted to the door for a moment and then back to me. Listen, sweetheart, even if you somehow manage out of here, you most certainly die out there. What do you mean? I asked, unclear as to what he meant by that. You're in my domain. There's no way a human like you could survive out there. Lots of nasty creatures outside would love to get their claws on a tasty little morsel like you, he said, pointing to the door. So if you want to go take your chances out there, be my guest, but if you ask me, it's much nicer in here. Kane raised his arms in approval of his abode. So I'm dead either way. Great. I held my face in my hands. I felt so utterly defeated. And then he walked over and got close to my ear. That's about the size of it, yes. Kane moved to the couch and took a seat. He lifted a book off a table and began to read it. It's not polite to stare. Oh, his little eyes flashed. Didn't anyone teach you any manners? Nah, I was raised by wolves. Not Vincent. Regular wolves. I jumped, startled by Kane's comment. I didn't even realize that I was staring at him. I'm gonna yell at him. Are you nuts? You must be fucking insane if you think I'm gonna let you keep me here. I shouted, completely fed up with this man's games. I turned around and stormed off towards the door. A mass of black feathers began to swirl in front of me and my eyes widened as Kane walked out of it. That's so unnecessary, dude. You could have taken 2 steps. Listen here, you impudent little child. I don't have the patience for your defiant drivel. Sorry, Daddy. He examined me with cold eyes before speaking again. You're beginning to show me how much of a waste of life you are. I thought you said you wanted to be interested. He raised his hands and I could feel myself lifting off the floor. I kicked and screamed as I floated before being slammed into the wall. The force relented and I slumped to the floor. Listen here, love. Kane kneeled down and gently caressed my hair. I felt something wrap around my arms and legs. I looked down to see what appeared to be vines. I didn't get much of a glance since Kane lifted my head up by the chin and forced me to look at him. "Look at me when I'm talking to you, trash." The vines started to twist around my limbs, getting tighter. I could feel sharp thorns begin to dig into my flesh. The vines then lifted me off the ground, displaying my entangled body to Kane. Now, I wouldn't say that I'm much of a gardener. Plants don't seem to last long in my care. I suppose you could say I lack the green thumb that competent gardeners possess. Kane circled around me as he spoke. Is he supposed to be like British or something? Does this guy have an accent? All I could do was whimper and squirm as the vines tightened and barbs cut my skin. "But I do have an appreciation for roses." I think that sounds about right. He feels British. "Red ones in particular." Kane reached over to the vine that was restraining my left arm and plucked a red rose off it. He held it up and examined it. "A flower known to represent everlasting love and romance, isn't it?" He shook his head in disapproval before continuing. "You humans try to find meaning in the strangest places. Somehow you found it fitting to attach intimacy, adoration, and fondness to a small, inconsequential plant." I can't keep doing that accent, it's awful. In doing this, you create a false sense of love in the exchanging of these flowers, since you sad mortals are too inept at truly expressing it. Kane crushed the rose in his hand. Pathetic. He opened his hand and let the petals fall to the floor. Maybe he just has a dumb voice like, "It's just a pretty weed that you all foolishly decided had significance." I could feel the thorns dig deeper. They were growing longer, becoming more akin to spikes than thorns. I gasped as the sharp spines slowly drove themselves into me. I whimpered and tears began to run down my face. Kane noticed my crying and leaned his face in close to mine. "What's wrong, my pet? Did I upset you? You've gotten so quiet." So, what kind of creature is he? Like, he has wings, he obviously lives in a hell dimension, and he has what seems like telekinetic powers, and also controls vines, but has raven wings? I don't know what he is. I guessed with all the other guys, and I came pretty close to most of it, but I don't even know where to begin with this guy. "Stop with the vines, homie." I sobbed as the vines continued their savage work. "I can't." Kane took off his blazer and tossed it aside as he got closer. "Stop? The fun hasn't even started yet." I felt a barb begin to form against the middle of my back. "I have to say, though, this is a really good look for you," he said as he eyed me up and down. The sharp tip of the newly developing spike struggled to pierce my spine as it fought against the bone. Uh-oh. Kane let out an exasperated sigh. "You're so fragile. And here I was hoping you were made of tougher stock. You are trying to break my spine in half, dude." I couldn't handle much more of this. My body was reaching its breaking point. Kane studied me for a moment, contemplating his next move. "All right, I'll stop. It would be a shame if you were to die now, especially since I've barely had my fun with you." He waved his hand and the thorns retracted, the vines loosened, and my bloodied body was lowered to the floor. Kane turned his back to me before walking out of the room. "Get yourself cleaned up. And try not to bleed on everything." Okay. Sometime in my stupor, I must have wandered back into the bedroom. Where should I go tonight? Let's go get a little look at what's out there. I walked into the living room and looked around. It was a little dark in here, but I managed to see a silhouette on the balcony. I crept through the darkness and carefully made my way towards the patio. Kane didn't react to my opening of the sliding door, maintaining his focus to something off in the distance. Why would I go out there if he's out there, though? Like, it didn't even give me the choice. "Come over here." His tone was different from earlier. It sounded more soft and thoughtful. I wandered over to him and looked at the horizon. I noticed that the sky looked different. Something about it seemed off. It looked kind of unnatural. You don't seem like the type to enjoy this scenery. You seem like the type that's a little bitch. I mean, you're supposed to be a big shot demon, right? Why aren't you chasing me around or hurting me? Kane said nothing as he kept his eye on the horizon. You don't have anything to say? Maybe you don't have the stones to hurt me. Kane put out his hand and flicked it towards the rail. I watched his hand motion for a second. It didn't last long before I felt myself lift off the floor. Have some class, you animal. I felt myself falling off the side of the balcony. All right. The party's gotten started. Okay, maybe I'll just do nice or whatever. And do I fit that interesting person criteria? I couldn't come up with a response. I only blushed harder. Ooh. He then got up from his bench and motioned me to follow him. Come with me. What about the piano? Fuck your piano. You still need to go first. All right, as long as you don't mind having some of my germs with your dessert. I do mind, actually. You have cooties. Kane laughed, picked up the spoon, and took a bite. He dipped it back in, then held out the spoon for me. Open. Like I'm a baby. Here comes the airplane. I opened my mouth for him and took a bite. It was so delicious, I ended up taking the spoon from him and licked the cream off of it. It's absolutely delicious. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Kane looked at the clock hanging above the barista's counter. Get out. Alright, let me just throw myself at him, I guess. I felt my toes curl in my shoes, apprehensive on what to say next. Never mind. You have a good night, too. Kane walked over and leaned his face in close to mine. If there's something that you desire, you must ask for it. Indecisiveness can be one costly oversight. If you're too frightened to grab hold of your wishes, then you will never have them. Kane spoke softly and walked away. I wasn't sure what to say. By the time I was able to think up a retort, he had already disappeared. What was that all about? And then we got the feather. Okay. Let's look around. I wasn't really in the mood to speak with Kane. I looked around the room. Everything looked pretty normal. I shuffled through his magazines on the table. It was just some business and world news stuff. He seemed like a pretty serious guy despite his intentions for me. It didn't seem like he was all too interested in speaking with me as well. Kane just sipped his coffee and looked outside. It's so nice outside, with this red sky. I spoke to him hesitantly, unsure of his mood. He took a sip of his coffee and set it on the windowsill. Yes, very nice. Being locked away for so long, you start to forget what the sun looks like. Locked away? Like in prison? I shifted nervously, but I kept my eyes on him. Was this guy an ex-con? We are literally standing in a hell dimension with a man with wings. And that's where we go. Ex-con. I felt sweat beginning to crawl down the back of my neck. He looked out the window again. I suppose you could call it that. It is a prison of sorts. I believe you humans know it by a different name. Kane's tone was somber, making it apparent that this wasn't a happy subject for him. Was that why he was keeping me here? Did he want someone else to go through what he did? Or did he just want someone to take his rage out on? Why me, of all people? I don't know. I didn't want to ask him any more questions. I didn't want to think about it. Kane moved to the couch and took a seat. He lifted a book off the table and began to read it. Okay, and then staring. Let's go do other things. We're gonna look around more. Let's go. Ooh. Okay, it might almost be worth it to be trapped in this hell dimension if this is what my bathtub looked like. I walked into the bathroom and inspected the pillar to my right. I placed my hand on it as the sun poured into the room. I then made my way over to an elegant-looking bathtub and sat on the rim of it. I closed my eyes, basking in the warm rays. It all felt very serene. The combination of sun's warmth and the silence made me feel calm. For a moment, I forgot where I was. I forgot about my situation. It was nice. It's a nice bathroom, huh? Kane's voice broke the tranquil scene. Yeah. He walked over and patted my head. I looked up at him, confused as to what kind of plans that he was brewing in that brain of his. Kane looked down at the tub. Maybe I could think up something fun to do in here later. Probably drown me. If our past experiences show anything, it'll be that we will be drowned. I looked at the tub, then back at him. My heart began to race from the look that he was giving me. Kane turned away and exited the room without explaining further. I got the uneasy feeling that he and I didn't share the same idea of fun. I got up from the tub and headed out of the bathroom. I probably shouldn't linger here for much longer. All the peacefulness had left the room anyways. Sometime in my stupor, we're in the bedroom. Okay, I guess since we explored the bathroom, it's a choice. Let's go in there. What was I doing? Was I actually going to go see him in the bathroom? What? He should be on the balcony. I touched the doorknob and slowly opened the door. Is he not on the balcony? Okay. Kane wasn't in here, but the tub was full of water and there was wine glasses on the side. I tilted my head and walked closer to the tub. I felt a pair of heavy hands on my hips and jumped. Eek! I squeaked out as I turned around. Why? Okay, he is just whole salami out on display already. Okay. Why are you so jumpy? It's just me. Oh, it's just you. You're exactly why I'm so jumpy, I thought to myself as I crossed my arms. This... The little weenie is right behind all of the words that I have to read. Like I can't like not look at it because it's exactly where I need to be reading. God damn it. They probably did this on purpose. You know she did this on purpose. You shouldn't be so jumpy around me. I do live here after all. I mean, still not a good reason. Kane said with a condescending tone that made me narrow my eyes. Like what you see? No. I opened my mouth to give him a witty response, but I looked him over. He was completely naked. Yes, he is. Why are you? Don't ask stupid questions. What's stupid about asking why you're naked? It's a bathroom, and I want to take a bath. He turned away from me and got in the bath himself. I stared at him, and he motioned to me. Come on. It sounded more like a command than a request, so I took off my clothes and gingerly got into the water with him. Don't fucking touch me while I'm in this bathtub, or I will, I don't know, get sucked down the drain. I'm just gonna turn into a limp little wet noodle and slide down the drain. Kane picked up a wine glass that was filled with a dark red liquid. I watched him sip it and I cringed. I wasn't sure what it was, but it looked gross. What are you, sir? What am I? Kane mused on that question for a moment, running a hand through his hair. I really wish I didn't have to look at this weenie. I'm a fallen angel. Cursed, really. Kane said as he turned his back to me for a moment. How did he turn his back? Aren't you in the bathtub? Oh, okay, I see. The large tattoo on his back flashed at me. I put my hand on the black marks and ran my fingers down it. Okay, the rule applies both ways, dude. Like, don't touch me, and also don't be touching other people. I muttered to myself. What? He responded gruffly as he turned around. Your name is really familiar. If you read anything about mythology, perhaps you've heard about me. Cain and Abel? Abel was my brother. Oh, shit. He deserved what he got. I didn't know that angels had telekinetic powers. Like, the wings make sense. But the vines don't make sense. And the telekinetic powers don't really make sense to me either. That could be a thing. That could canonically be a thing in Christian mythology. I don't know. There was no remorse in his voice. How old are you? Ancient. It's really just recently that I could do what I want. Do you enjoy robbing the cradle? Let's poke the bear. He let out a hearty laugh and put his hand on my head. Only as much as you enjoy robbing the grave. So none. You're pretty feisty for someone in your situation. Always. I have to be. I don't want to just roll over for you. Kane seemed surprised and patted my head. Why don't I leave you alone for the night? Yes, please. Enjoy your bath. Thank you. He climbed out of the bath. He wrapped a towel around his waist and walked out of the bathroom. I leaned my head under the water a bit. The warm water surrounding me. It made me feel safe. I only spent a few minutes by myself before I slipped out of the bathroom and into Kane's bedroom. I thought we were in a separate bedroom. I didn't know that that was his bedroom. He was laying down with his arms behind his head. Again, just full weenie out. Why don't you come here and rob the grave, he says. Okay. You know, I gotta do it to him. Get wrecked. I thought you were going to leave me alone. You caught me. Come here. I felt a force nudge me towards him and I crawled on the bed. You win. What does that mean? He said as I crawled to his side. I leaned my head on his shoulder and nuzzled him. He was so warm. I closed my eyes and leaned against him. I could feel myself falling asleep. I got up and looked around. I didn't see Kane anywhere. I walked into the main room and looked around. Well, we were just in the bedroom and he wasn't in there, so... I walked into the small kitchen area and looked inside the cabinets. He's just like hunched in there, just like, oh, she's never gonna find me. I was met with a drawer full of knives. Yeah, let's stab his dumb face. I smiled to myself and grabbed one. I looked at the knife. It looked pretty sharp. I gripped the handle tight and sneered. I mean, I don't know what I am expecting this to do against a mythological creature, but, you know, well, whatever makes me feel better. Maybe if I got the drop on him, I could take him down. I walked softly towards Kane's bedroom and peeked into the door. He was sitting on the chair in his room with a back to the door. I lit up and hid the knife behind my back as I tiptoed towards him. I lifted the knife as my heart started to race. Now! I brought my arm down on him, but it stopped. Ah! He didn't look up from his book as I could feel myself being thrown into the back wall. I felt like there was an invisible hand around my neck as I kicked my legs. You know, if you weren't so noisy, you might have been able to stab me. He got up and picked the knife off the floor. Kane looked down at the blade. It's pretty sharp, isn't it? He snapped his fingers and my legs started to spread. I gasped loudly trying to close them, but the pressure was too much. Uh-oh. Kane walked over to me, waving the kitchen knife. "I don't think so, darling." He poked the tip of the blade into my knee, and I let out a soft whimper. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction, but that feeling faded as he dragged the knife up my inner thigh. I let out a loud cry as he dug in. He licked his lips and watched the blood spill out of my leg and dropped the knife before he hit my groin. Very sharp indeed. Kane leaned down and licked the blood off my leg. Ew. I gasped as his tongue hit the cut and he looked up at me. Every time. Okay, well, you can fuck off. Get off of me. I don't think so. Kane said as he bit down on my leg. I let out a cry as he bit me and sucked out my blood. I could feel myself getting lightheaded. He leaned up to me and pressed his lips against mine, pushing my own blood into my mouth. Ew. I wanted to scream, pull my head away, but I couldn't. I gulped down my own blood and he dropped me on the floor. Be careful with that knife. He stepped over my body and I curled up into a ball. The door behind him slammed. I coughed lightly, trying to get the blood taste out of my mouth. I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to sleep. I laid down on his bed and closed my eyes. I opened my eyes and looked around. Oh, I'm in my own house. I was back home. What happened? Is this a mirage? Is this a dream? Maybe everything that just happened was a dream. I sat up and felt a pain shooting in my side. Did he take my kidneys? I looked down at my side and it was bleeding through the sheet. My heart started to race as I looked at myself. I was still naked and covered in injuries. No, I whispered as I turned my arm over. That cross and wings. I saw it at Kane's house. But why was I home? Excuse me. An unfamiliar voice called to my side. I felt a cold sinking feeling as I slowly turned my head towards the man to my side. Is this Sano again? It felt like an ice-cold bucket of water was dumped over my head as the man approached me. My blood felt cold as he leaned into me. Do you know who I am? He asked me in a low, dark drawl. I mean, technically, yes. I sat up straight, any pain or embarrassment shut down by his voice. I opened my mouth to speak, but I couldn't say anything. I shook my head. He sighed and pushed up his glasses. I didn't think so. My name is Samael. I'm here to take you. Then why does he look exactly like Sano? Something hinky is going on here, and I'm going to get to the bottom of it. Take me? I croaked out finally. Your life. Your time is up. No, wait. I stammered out, putting out my hand, trying to push him away. Samael? 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 Sam? Grabbed my arm and looked at the mark on it. His red eyes narrowed. What's this? I don't know. I think Kane. That's all you need to say. He put my arm down. He put out his hand as the room dropped colder. My toes and fingers started to tingle. I was going to take your life, but Sam gripped his hand and large ice spikes pushed through my skin. I let out a loud scream as the cold spears pierced my flesh. I coughed blood on the ice as I gripped the spikes. I tried to pull myself away, but I was getting weak. You're going to Judecca. I have some questions for you. What is Judecca? I started to sink into the floor. He put his boot against the bridge of my nose. You don't need to be awake for this part. He smashed my nose in. I could feel myself slipping into unconsciousness as a wave of cold blackness overcame me. Kane abandoned me. Tight. Okay. I guess I'll just run through the options. Kane sighed and shook his head. Still fighting after all this time? It seems as though I can't break you. He grabbed my face and forced my mouth open. You won't be needing this. Is he about to take my tongue? You have nothing good to say anyways. He pulled my tongue out of my head and punched my jaw into it. Ow. I could feel my teeth sinking into the soft muscles, severing it from my mouth. I wanted to scream or cry, but all I could feel was blood pooling in my mouth. I let out a scream that came in gurgles and blood. Kane looked at my tongue and tossed it away as he pushed me on the ground. The pain was unbearable. I could feel myself fading as I looked up at Kane. You brought this on yourself, you boring creature. I felt my eyes getting heavy. The blood was pooling in my mouth, and Kane wouldn't let me spit it out. He kept his hand over my mouth as I blacked out. See, they all say that they want us to be interesting and they want to have the challenge of breaking us, but then when you actually give them a challenge, you are always murdered. Always. With the one exception of Ren, who just loses his fucking mind. Every other time they're like, oh, you don't want to have sex with me after I've punched you in the head a couple times. I don't like you anymore. All right, let's do the fucking icky one. No, I didn't like it. Kane stared at me as I tried to keep my mouth shut. Damn it. The pressure around my neck lightened a bit as I took another breath. It tightened just enough to feel good. I moaned softly as he rubbed the blood with his thumb. You know, it's very alluring. You trying to kill me. Cool. Was that just foreplay? Yeah. Uh-huh. I want you dead. I want to leave. Oh no. Really? Oh no. Oh no. You're different. I'm sure. He patted my head and licked my blood off his hand. You can call me master if you want. I really don't. Nah, I'm good. Suit yourself. He caressed my hair. I'll get you to say it soon. King got off the bed and walked away. I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to sleep. I lay down on his bed and closed my eyes. Did he abandon me because I wouldn't call him master? Fucking men. I fucking guess. Good. He leaned in and nuzzled me. I will not be doing that. I will not be calling this man master. So every time it comes up, I'm going to reuse my favorite pet name that he has given me, which is Meat. He leaned in and nuzzled me. Keep it that way. Kane got off the bed and walked away. Did he abandon me again? What the fuck? What? Okay, so I went all the way back. I mean, it wasn't that far back, but back where he's like, come sleep with me. Last time I said no, and then he made me do it, so maybe if I just do it. I walked over and crawled on his lap. Are you serious? I guess so. I could feel his hand behind my neck as he pulled me down for a kiss. I leaned back and oh. He said, haven't I hurt you enough? And I responded, maybe I want you to hurt me. Why? I wish I could show this to you. Because his berries are very underdeveloped. Like, I don't even know how to describe this. It's very much Blair, but it's very much like this. If anybody's walking in on this right now, it's just a fish. Don't worry. I drew a fish / a blimp. It's just a blimp. But also, why are they so small? Okay, so I wonder, did all of that stuff. So I'm wondering now if I go and grab the knife and try to stab him in the face, if he ends up abandoning us with all of those options. So I'm gonna test that out. Okay, so I did the get off of me and he still abandoned me, but I did stop. I whimpered out. Kane rolled his eyes and dropped me on the floor. You're pathetic. He put his foot on my head and pushed down. I could just stomp you. I let out a small cry as he pushed on my head. He kicked me in the face and I let out a scream as I felt blood drop out of my nose. He leaned down and grabbed my chin. If you're gonna be brave, you should stick to your guns. What is it that he wants from me? What are you wanting? Kane tossed my head back and sent a hard kick into my stomach. Stay on the floor where you belong. And then abandoned. Okay. Okay, so it's just abandonment every time. Know where the knives are, but just keep them there. I shut the drawer and walked off to the bedroom. I walked into the bedroom and saw the back of Kane's head. He was sitting on the bed and he looked over his shoulder at me and put up his hand. Come here, pet, he said as I could feel myself being dragged across the ground. He put his hand on my face. He could have just asked me. I would have just walked. I would have just used my feet. He looked at the walls of his bedroom as he snapped his fingers. Chains shot out of his wall as they grabbed my wrists. I struggled to get free. You are unforgivably boring. What does he want from me? Kane stood over me. The chains gripped me tight and pulled me on the bed. He put his foot in the middle of my chest and pushed down. Ask me nicely to let you go. Fuck off, Kane said as he pushed into my sternum. No. I looked at him and he cocked his head to the side. Yeah, I want you to just crush me to death so I don't have to deal with your dumb face anymore. Hoping it would make him happy. Oh, you want me to be rough? He said as he gripped his hand. I could feel chains hooked around my ankles. Let's play a game then. Kane put out his hand as the chains stretched me out. I could feel my limbs stretching tight as I looked up at him. The metal was digging into my wrists. Want more? Kane put out his hand and my limbs tugged up above my head and my legs pulled down. I screamed as loud as I could as he pulled my limbs. Do you know what a rack is? Yes, I do. My joints started to pull at the seams. I could feel my muscles pull apart and I looked up at him. Please stop, I begged as the chains slowly pulled me apart. Stop? Why would I want to do that? You asked so nicely for more. I could hear something creaking in my limbs. I sobbed as Kane stood to the side watching me. I heard a loud crack as pain shot out from all my limbs. I could feel my bones breaking under the stretch of the chains. I felt my body convulsing and Kane's loud laughter filled my ears. You won't be needing those anymore, Kane said as I could feel my limbs quickly being torn from their spots. My blood flew into the air as I went cold. Sweet. This guy is stupid. Okay, so don't. I didn't want to beg for my life. I just wanted him to stop. Please stop. He gave me one swift kick into my chest. I could hear something in my chest crack. I let out a loud scream and tried to put my hands on his shoe, but the chains strung me tighter. I could feel my arms pulling from their sockets. They were holding on by just a small thread as I screamed again. I could hear the joints popping and I cringed, biting my lip. Louder. I can't hear you from down there. Kane mocked as he pushed down on my chest. I was glad that the bed was soft and sunk me down. If not, I'm sure he would have cracked more of my ribs. Please let me go. All right, just because you asked so nicely. He dropped me on the bed as I held my arms. I pulled and huddled up, keeping all my limbs close to me. He flicked my forehead and walked away from me. Okay. I didn't want to do anything. Okay, does he abandon me again? Fuck! This guy's such a picky little bitch. Alright, so instead of looking in the kitchen, I'm just gonna go straight to the bedroom. I headed back into the bedroom and looked around. Why did I even come back in here? I let out a heavy sigh as I walked to the bed and took a seat. I picked up my head at the sound of someone coming inside. Kane sat down next to me. Hello, pet. He put his hand on my face. He looked at the walls of his bedroom as he snapped his fingers. Oh, is he just gonna do it again? Fuck you. Well, fine. Apparently, he's just gonna fucking abandon me no matter what I do, so maybe I'll just be abandoned for a little while.
I feel your rage across